What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with another Week 11 college football preview. And y'all know what Fridays are on this channel is SWAC Fridays. And you know what? I'm gonna make both games this week games of the week for you guys because both of these games are huge. They have giant ramifications for the SWAC. So this one and our Jackson State preview later today will be games of the week. Man, we've got the Boombox Classic dropping this afternoon, but we have to start with Prairie View traveling to Lorman to face Alcorn State, man, and it's a 2 p.m. Central kickoff game, and everything is on the line in Lorman, Mississippi this weekend. The SWAC West could be decided, and all the eyes in the SWAC are going to be looking upon Lorman this weekend as Fred McNair looks to keep the Braves alive for his fifth SWAC division title here for the Braves, while Eric Dooley and PV are looking to claim their first SWAC division title under Dooley and their first. And I mean, this could lock up their first trip to the SWAC championship since 2009, which is the last year PV won the SWAC. But let's set the table real quick, man. The Panthers come in 7-1, 6-0 in the SWAC, and will only have to win one of their last two games to clinch the division, but a win this weekend will seal the deal for the Panthers. So I expect this PV team to come in motivated. They're not going to be afraid of the moment, and I would imagine that they're going to come with full force to try to lock up this division before the last week of the conference play. But Alcorn coming into this matchup 5-4, 4-2 in the SWAC, and they're going to have to win both of their next two games and hope PV loses their final two games. And the Braves are looking to bounce back from a two-game losing streak, but they finally return home to Lorman, and their whole season is on the line. So I expect everybody to be just pumped for this game. I expect the atmosphere to be electric, and both of these teams are going to come in and put all their chips in the middle of the table, and I am pumped to see it. Now, currently in this series, Alcorn is on a three-game win streak over the Panthers. The last PV win coming in their back-to-back wins in 2015 and 2016, but that is the stage that we have this weekend in Lorman. So let's get to the keys of the game for each of these teams. We'll start with Prairie View, and the key for them, in my opinion, lies in the rushing attack for the Panthers. Now, I know a lot of people will point to Juwan Pass and this electric offense, but for me, the rushing attack means more to this offense than I think people are giving it credit for. The rushing attack has really been the difference all season long. And I mean, when the running attack opens up for them, that's really what sets up a lot of what pass does down the field in terms of passing. And it really helps the offensive line protect him and give him time to be as dynamic down the field as he is. Now, the biggest key in this game for PV is going to be one, controlling the pace of the game. Play your type of football game. Make it where you are comfortable and put this Alcorn defense in a bunch of uncomfortable spots. And also imposing their will on this line of scrimmage battle that they should win. This offensive line should really win their battle against the Alcorn defensive line. They have the bigger size advantage. They've been more dominant all season long. So for me, I think those are going to be the main keys for Prairie View. But when you look at their rushing attack, they rank second in the SWAC in yards per game with over 180 yards per game on the ground. And the last two games have been huge games with a combined over 400 yards and seven rushing touchdowns in just the last two games for PV. And they've rushed for over 130 yards in every single game this season. Now, Jaden Storts and LaDamian Brooks are the two guys you're going to have to look out for. Both have over 430 rushing yards, both averaging near 6 yards per carry, and they have a combined 9 rushing touchdowns. They were the biggest factor in that huge Southern win they had, and they've been factors all season long for this Prairie View offense. And also, you have to look out for Juwan Pass as well, over 200 yards rushing for him in his own 4 rushing touchdowns. So, all three of these guys can be game changers for this rushing attack for PV, but I'm expecting Stort and Brooks to be the X factors in this game plan. PV has to stick to the game plan. Run the football, run the football, run the football. Do not let Alcorn establish their run, which they're also going to try to do with some of the really talented backs that we're going to talk about later. But for me, you have to make this game yours, PV. On the road, you're going to have to take the crowd out of it early. Usually, I would say defer. If they win the coin toss, if I'm PV and Dooley, I'm saying give me the football and I'm going to drive it down your throat and we're going to set the tone early. I need to see PV come in with full confidence and just say we're going to be better than you at the offensive line and we're going to run it down your throat. And when you load the box, we are going to take advantage of your DBs down the field. And that brings me to the other thing I wanted to cover. This passing attack, once this rushing attack is established, they get some one-on-one matchups on the outside, and that is where Jawan Pass really thrives. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 7 picks. But the number one thing for Pass this weekend is you cannot turn the ball over. You cannot give an experienced quarterback like Felix Harper extra possessions and great field position. You are going to have to be, you've got to make a smart, efficient decisions with the football this weekend. Be a distributor and don't try to do too much with the football. But for Pass, he's only thrown 2 picks in the last 5 games, and they both came in the same game. So he's been better in terms of his efficiency in taking care of the ball, but that's going to be something to watch for him. And you look at the wide receivers, Antonio Mullins, Jalen Howard, and also Evan Fairs all have had big time season. Mullen with over 400 receiving yards, Howard with 4 receiving touchdowns, Fairs been all over the field as well. They have some playmakers on the outside, and Prairie View is going to have to trust these guys to go make plays against this Alcorn defensive backfield that has some playmakers. It has some playmakers in it. So for me, these are the keys for Prairie View this weekend to come out with a win on the road and clinch a SWAC championship berth. Now, for Alcorn on the other side of the football, man, the key for the Braves this weekend for me is going to be balance. That is the word. Some of these coaches like to have words that like define the week. It should be balance for Alcorn. That's what you have to do to win this game, especially since you look at how balanced Prairie View's defense is. By yardage, they have the best rushing defense in the SWAC, and they have the number 2 pass defense in the SWAC as well in terms of yardage allowed. So if the number one thing you can't be if you're Alcorn is one dimensional, because Prairie View's defense is too good for you to be predictable with your offensive play calling or what you want to do with the football. So you have to keep Prairie View off balance. And they've done that pretty well this year. The number 4 rushing attack in the SWAC with 164 yards per game and a top 5 passing attack with over 224 through the air per game. Now, for the rushing attack, this is going to be interesting to see how they can establish a run. Nico Duffy has had some opportunities. Also, Stafford Anderson is going to be someone to watch. But Duffy's approaching 800 yards on the season, almost 6 yards per carry and 4 touchdowns, while Anderson has had some time away from the program with injury, but he's back and he's been at full strength these past few weeks with over 400 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns himself. And of course, we know the playmaker, the trigger man can be 5 rushing touchdowns this season for Harper as well. So these 3 guys are going to have big games. Alcorn has done a great job this season running the football, and it's been a key for a lot of their big wins. But if you're one dimensional against PV, you are going to get run out of the building. You have to keep this defense off balance and establishing the run game with Duffy and Anderson, and also Harper making plays with his legs. That is going to be a huge part of the key for Alcorn this weekend. Now, the passing offense is going to be something to watch. They are going to have to generate some explosive plays. That's where balance comes in. PV leads the SWAC in yards per play this season, so Felix Harper is going to have to play big time football. Over 1,700 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks. And the number one thing I want to see, because this PV line is good, can he make plays outside the pocket when things break down? If they get into the backfield and you escape, can you push the ball down the field on the run, or can you make some plays happen with your legs? Felix Harper is going to have to live up to that trigger man mantra that he has. He's going to have to play giant this weekend for Alcorn. Now, the wide receivers have to do their thing too. CJ Bowler, LaCharles Pringle, also Jawan Anthony, they're going to have giant games. Bowler over 500 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns. Pringle, 6 touchdowns for over 500 yards receiving. These guys are going to have to go make plays for their quarterback. If they can't generate separation and Felix is back there on an island with nowhere to go with the football, that's a recipe for disaster for Alcorn. So you have to go make plays. And Bowler and Pringle have made plays all season long. So for me, those guys are really going to be the X factors to watch at that wide receiver spot as they try to help their quarterback make some explosive plays down the field. Now, for the matchup to watch, the last thing we'll cover, I went back and forth on what I was going to pick, but I eventually, I talked a little bit about it yesterday on the roundtable. Alcorn's offensive line versus Prairie View's defensive line is going to be a matchup that I'm going to watch for the full 60 minutes, man. This Alcorn offensive line might be the single biggest piece of the puzzle this weekend for McNair's squad. This is going to be, I believe, up to this point in the season, one of the toughest tests that they've seen in terms of D line play for this offensive line. They are going to have to win the line of scrimmage battle, and they're going to have to protect Harper in the pocket. Now, when you look at this offensive line, they've given up 25 sacks this season, and that's tied for second to last in the SWAC. They are at the bottom of the SWAC right now in sacks allowed, and that's a major concern for me this weekend. They're going to have to step their play up. Now, they've allowed a sack in every single game this season, and 2 or more sacks in 8 of their 9 games this season, which included that 6 total sacks allowed against UAPB. So they're going to have to play big time football. They're going to have to continue their improvement. They've played better in recent weeks as they've gotten healthy, but tackles for loss and sacks are going to really hinder this offense's potential, because PV's defense is too good for Alcorn's offense to be off schedule. If you find yourself in second and third and longs, they're going to pin their ears back, and you're going to have major problems if you're Alcorn. Stay ahead of the chains. Play and just like I said, PV's got to establish their type of gameplay. If you're Alcorn, you want to control the pace of the game because it can get out of hand real quickly if you let PV establish their will. So stay ahead of the chains and protect Felix Harper at all costs. That jersey cannot have a turf stain on it. Do not let them get to Felix Harper, rush him, and force him into mistakes. Because if you give PV's offense extra possessions on short fields, more likely than not, they're going to turn those into points. Now, for the defensive line for Prairie View, they've been stout. They're fourth in sacks this season in the SWAC with over 20 sacks, over 70 tackles for loss, and of course, they're headlined by the SWAC All-American Jason Dumas. Now, they have a sack in every single game, including 5 of their 9 games with 2 or more sacks, which includes their 8-sack performance against Houston Baptist. And they have 6 different players with 2 or more sacks. They can get pressure using their linebackers, their DNs, their D tackles. They can do it from everywhere. Now, the weakness early this season was at that guard and center spot for Alcorn. If Dumas gets loose this weekend, we can be talking about a blowout because he can be a game wrecker if his motor gets going. Dumas with 7.5 sacks this year, 12 tackles for loss. Troy James with 3.5 sacks. Rashad Powell off the edge is going to be a problem. Warren Schenkel, Travion Green, all these guys are going to be names to watch this weekend. If you're Dooley, you know you have to get to Harper. You cannot let him sit back there and pick you apart. You have to get after him. You have to speed up that internal clock where he's making decisions quicker than he needs to, even when you don't get pressure. I am coming after Felix early, and I'm going to not let Alcorn run the football. The quicker you can make them one-dimensional, the easier it's going to be for Prairie View to escape with the win. So that's how I'm looking at this game right now. For predictions, though, man, this one's so tough because Alcorn, yes, they're on a 2-game losing streak, but they're going back home with everything on the line. And I know McNair is going to have this team ready to play, but Prairie View has been on such a run, and they've looked so dominant for most of the season. For me, looking at the strengths, weaknesses of these teams, watching the film, seeing how they've been playing this year, I just don't see enough from Alcorn's defense to slow down this Prairie View offense. I think this game's a little bit more high scoring than people would imagine, but I'm going with PV this weekend, 37-30 over Alcorn in Lorman, Mississippi, and clinching their trip to the SWAC Championship this year. for the first time in a multiple years, man. So I got PV 37, Alcorn 30, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in. It's our game of the week. Comment your score predictions below. Enter our $50 giveaway by subscribing and liking the video now, man. But I got a 7-point win for PV, headed to the SWAC Championship if I'm right. But let me know your thoughts on the game below. Comment your score prediction below and tune in this afternoon for our last Week 11 college football preview as we preview the Boombox Classic. And also, man, we just dropped our membership. You can check out the community tab for what all that entails. If you join, appreciate you, man. No pressure, though. And listen, if you're traveling to the game this weekend, y'all have a blast. Y'all be safe. And I will see y'all later today with another preview. But for right now, man, the Blue Bloods are out.